Welcome to Let Freedom Ring. This week, my guest, Landon Hale. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, pleasure to have you. Let's get to know you a little bit. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
So I say that I'm from Pikeville, Kentucky, but I'm actually born and raised in Harold, Kentucky. It's like a very small town. There's one gas station, there's a few churches, a drive-through liquor store, so it's as country as you can get, but I love that place, and that's where I've been for about 24 years before I moved to Georgia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now you're here now, so you moved to Georgia, but now are you in Massachusetts or New Hampshire?
I'm in Massachusetts, yep.
How does that happen?
So my wife and I, we met in Georgia. So she's a chiropractor as well. And so when we met in Georgia, and that's kind of like, COVID was a very rampant thing. So we're very thankful that COVID brought us together because when I wasn't wrestling and she wasn't working, that actually brought us together to, meet and stuff like that. And so she was like, hey, I'm from Massachusetts. I told her I was from Kentucky. And she's like, if you want to make this work, you got to come up here. And I say that joke all the time. so don't kill me, babe. I'm sorry. but she was like, I would like to move back up here. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And so I gave this place a chance and I love it. So I couldn't be happier.
All right. Awesome. Now, what are 3 things that everybody should know about you?
So I am a professional wrestler. I am also a chiropractor. And another thing you may not know about me, but I play piano and I sing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any songs that in particular that you're really into?
So the one song that I love country. So born and raised, grown up on country. So I love all music, but the one thing that I love playing on the piano is country music. And me and Jordan, that's my wife. She's a big fan of Chris Young. And so when I first met her and stuff like that, I realized that at her house there was a piano. And I was like, oh, she doesn't know that I played the piano, so I could be able to play the piano for her, sing a song, and then ever since then, it's always been Chris Young songs ever since. So I love country music, though, but just anything that I can play and has a nice tune to it, I'd love to play it.
See, I didn't like country till I got to college.
Oh, really?
I went to Plymouth State, and for whatever reason, up there, everybody was always, like, even you go to the subway, country was on. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, I never wanted to give it a chance. And now it's like, I listen to country and Christian music. That's pretty much all I listen to.
It's great. I love country music is good for the soul. At least that's what I think.
No, I agree. No, that's awesome. Now, sticking with the theme of the show, which is Let Freedom Ring, and we ask every guest this, and we always say it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Mm-hmm. And you grew up in the South, so this we might get a different answer from you than some other guests.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you to be an American?
Well, you look at today's world regardless of the viewpoints, but you have to realize that we don't have that many restrictions when it comes to being free with what we can do. Because of a lot of other countries, they have different restrictions, they have different things that they have to follow by, or there's upset consequences. For us, we have the chance to be ourselves and to be who we are, whether if you're man, woman, bisexual, whatever it may be, people are willing to live the way that they want to live. And I think that's the beauty of America, is that we can live however we want to live. I love this country.
Yeah, no, I love this. I love that answer. So, we get a lot of different ones, obviously. Sometimes people are just like, yeah, red, white. It's like, it's a complicated question. Yeah. So, no, I appreciate that. I do want to get into this because it's very interesting stuff that you're a pro wrestler and you're also a chiropractor.
Yep.
How did you decide you wanted to be a pro wrestler?
So it's a little bit of a story. So I was a big fan of wrestling when I was about 5 years old. So my dad passed away when I was 7, but before that, that was the one thing that we bonded over was wrestling, and we loved it ever since. And it was like we'd watch WCW. We didn't watch most of like WWF because my mom wasn't a fan of wrestling.
Being in the South though, like they love WCW.
Yeah, it's a huge thing, and for me I was a big fan of like the Luchadors and like Rey Mysterio, Psychosis, Juventud Guerrera, you name it. And my dad, he was a big fan of Kevin Nash and NWO. He was a fan of like the bigger superstars, and so I guess you fast forward so many years later. And there's like extra stories to it, but I'll cut it for time. But as you get to, as I'm finishing up with undergrad, and my area of Kentucky, it's not like the South of like Georgia, Florida, or like the Southeast. It's not like up here where wrestling, independent wrestling is a popular thing, and like you can go to any place and everyone's excited for wrestling. That area of Kentucky, it's not so much of they want to go support independent wrestling because all they know is WWE, all they know is TV wrestling. So when you go to these different places that have independent wrestling shows, it's not the famous, indie stars that you would see today. They're just local people, but you would get like maybe 20 or 30 people in a building. But for them, it's the love of it, and that's the theme with every professional wrestler is that they don't care who they wrestle in front of, they love it. And so it got to thinking, I was like, okay, so one of my friends made a post on Facebook one day, so like 4 years ago, and was talking about compare two wrestlers, and I'll give you the best one or who I think. I gave him my question, then I asked more questions, and then all of a sudden I was just like, you know what? It's spiraling into how do I get into wrestling? So I just shot him a message. I was like, how do you get into wrestling? And then so he was telling me all about how to get into wrestling, and then he said, if you want to, come over to my buddy's house, and maybe we can we have a ring set up in the backyard, and you can be able to come back. You can come down and take a few bumps. And I was like, all right, sounds good. So I go over to my buddy's place. The ring was set in the backyard. I took my first ever back bump in a legit backyard. So I was like, This is pretty cool. It hurts like hell, but I was like, okay, this feels nice. It feels good. And it felt like when I was a kid and I was wrestling, like big stuff, like stuffed toys, where I was like, pretending to be these wrestlers that I was like watching on TV and mimicking from TV. And then after that, it just felt natural to me. But then I need to realize I need to get the basics down. So my buddy was telling me that there's a wrestler out of St. Paul, Virginia named Mike Sampson, which he goes by the name Iron Cross. He used to wrestle in the WWF, but he was more of like a jobber role.
I think I might have heard that name before.
Yeah. He used to go by Michael Scarberry, but so he did stuff with WWF, but he wrestled the guys like Steiner Brothers, Hart Foundation. Like he wrestled everybody, so it was really cool. So he taught me the basics, bread and butter of wrestling, like the basics of like how to do this, how to do that, like ABC. And I've only had 2 training sessions under him before I had my first match. And then ever since then, it just flourished. So that's how I got my feet wet into wrestling, and it's where I am today.
No, very cool. Like, what year did you start watching?
I started watching, again, I was probably about 5 years old when I started watching it. So I'd probably say like 1998, 1999, because I remember like going to like the local movie store, Blockbuster or whatever, and we'd get these VHS tapes, and I remember the first one was like Bash at the Beach compilations, and I remember seeing like Rey Mysterio and Psychosis. I remember seeing this is when Hogan turned heel, and he was forming the NWO, so there's a lot of memories from that, but that was the first time I started watching it. When my dad passed away, I didn't have a period of like watching it at all for a good maybe 3 years. Yeah. 4th or 5th grade, I started watching it again. This was probably around WrestleMania 20. So watching it from there on, I've been a fan of it. Then I got into TNA. Then I looked a little bit into the Japanese style of wrestling. And so it's been growing, and I have a bigger love for it like now that I'm a wrestler versus when I was a kid.
Because I hear from a lot of people that once they get into wrestling, like we've had a few guests on here, and they're like, I don't want to watch it anymore. Mm-hmm. Do you still have that passion to be like a fan, even though you're doing it on top of it? Oh,
absolutely, yeah. And there's times where because there's people now like when they're wrestlers and they sit out in the audience, like they see the little things, but like as fans, you want to support your friends and stuff like that. And I remember, I think it was like earlier this year in January, I wrestled at a show called Paradigm Pro, and I was supposed to be on another show, but ended up getting canceled. And one of my good friends, Zicky Dice, he had his show in Georgia, and this was before I moved up to Massachusetts. So I drove from Indiana to Georgia, and I was seeing some of my friends like Chris Bay, AC Mack.
Chris Bay, he wrestles for New Japan?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's on Impact right now.
Okay.
But yeah, Chris Bay, Thunder Rosa, AC Mack, Myron Reed. Like I've seen all these guys. I'm like, you know what? I don't mind paying a ticket to come in and to support these guys. So it's always good to be a fan every now and then, and not so much just be like so tight on just watching the product and just making critiques like you see everybody do. But it's nice to just be a fan every once in a while. So I like it.
I did notice at the APW show in Nashville, Chase Almonte, who's been on the show. Yeah. And Chase is great. Like he's very awesome. Entertaining.
Oh, he's awesome.
He was having a blast watching the show. Like as you saw him, he was loving it. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate that, because I've had other people say, like, they're like, yeah, once I started wrestling, I didn't really. I'm like, all right, well, I feel like you're always a fan of something once you started.
Oh
so.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, and I think too that you don't really lose a passion for it if you've grown up to love it ever since you were little. It's kind of like basketball; you don't lose the love for it. I mean, sometimes people may go away from it to not play it, but they can still appreciate what they see and stuff like that. So I still think passion is still there, regardless.
All right, now what was it like making your debut?
It was
gotta be nerve-wracking.
It was, and that's another funny story as well. And so with wrestling now, because in wrestling, you have you're paying your dues where it's like whether it's help setting up the ring or tearing down the ring, whether it be being a referee or just stuff like that. And like I was very fortunate that I didn't have to go through those phases. I thank God every day for that because those people had to go through like the small grind just to get to having their first match. And so, and like I stated before, true story, I had two wrestling training sessions. They were, I guess it was like 2 days after my last one. You have to get a license in Kentucky to wrestle.
New Hampshire too, yeah.
Yeah, and so I ended up getting my license. I go to the show. They were getting ready to crown a new champion, but they were doing a tournament. They didn't know how many people they were going to have there. And as I show up, one of the promoters was like, "Hey, do you have your license?" I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, we want you to be a referee tonight." And obviously I'm kind of down in the dumps. I was like, "Oh man, like I didn't want to be this." So I'm thankful for two people, and some people may not know who they are, but it's fine. JT Walker and Eric Porter. These are my friends from back home, and they're wrestling in the local Kentucky, Tennessee area. And when I was getting ready to, start up with being a ref, they're like, "Hey, we set up the ring. Let's go do some drills and let's see what's going on." I was like, "All right, cool." So I showed them the basics of like what I can do, and then they were like, "Hey, you need to put this kid on." And then so I had my first match. Actually, I had my first two matches because I won the first round, and then I ended up losing the second round. So it was nerve-wracking because no one knows who you are, and you're just this kid that's living his dream, and it's not on a bed with a stuffed animal. It's in the ring with the human, and you're just like, "Oh man, this is so cool!" And you have your own entrance music, and now it's like it's all coming to life, regardless if it's not like a grand scheme of like a WWE stage or a TV, like just a TV stage in general. Yeah. But it was nice that I got to experience that, and so it literally just felt like I was home. So it was nice.
No, it's very cool. Like we were talking off camera, like Will Duncan, he's been on the show before. He's making his debut tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It just sounds super exciting.
It is.
I've been down to the New England Pro Wrestling Academy once, but I didn't even know what these existed until I was like in my 30s. Mm-hmm. So I went down at 34. I go, I'm going to do this for a day, and that's it. And it was fun. It was a really good time. So. No, that's awesome. Now, what's your favorite part of being a professional wrestler?
There's so many things. It's the people that you meet. It's the road trips that you go on. It's the memories that you make, because people say that they can have their best matches with top TV stars, top indie stars, guys that are on the rise, and it's amazing. But I think at the end of it all, the best experience is, driving 4 hours from Massachusetts to New Jersey with some of your friends, talking about different stories that you've heard from other people, or that you've grown up like watching, or that you've had those experiences with. It's the memories that you joke around backstage with people. It's always a good time that's like one of the best memories, is to enjoy and to meet new people, because I'm a people person. I love seeing people, understanding their stories and how they get to where they're at now. And so I think that's the beauty of wrestling, is the experiences that you get to see. So it's really nice.
Awesome. Is there a least favorite part? Like just something that you're just like, I don't want to go through that.
Nagging injuries. Nagging injuries for sure. But nagging injuries, and then sometimes you do kind of lose sleep. But again, it's the grind of it all, because sometimes you may have to go from this city to the next, and it may be you only have like 4 hours of sleep once you get everything taken care of, and then you're on to the next show. But again, it's the adrenaline, it's the love, it's the passion that you have for it. And that goes back to what we were talking about before. I don't think with wrestlers they lose that passion if they have that desire to make it big.
Yeah, no, I mean, now they use the term weekend warrior. Now, are you now obviously hurt right now?
Yeah.
But are you like, I got to be booked Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
I would love that, and I've taken into consideration, I think this kind of is like a sign from God that, with this injury, that it's kind of like taking a step back from things, because there's people out there that they want to get booked. They want to have, like the weekends where it's like, I want to wrestle Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If there's shows on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I would take it. It's those opportunities that's going to help you out, yes, but at the same time too, it's also knowing like how to take care of your body, how to take care of your mental health, how to take care of the stresses that you add to yourself. Because the weekend that I ended up getting hurt was actually the day after the APW show we talked about. So it was like Thursday was Wrestling Open in Massachusetts. Friday was the APW show in New Hampshire. And then I got injured at Fight Life in Rhode Island. So then the next day I was getting ready to drive to Invictus in New Jersey. And those are the moments where you're just like, okay, I could either, tough it out, put dirt on it, rub some dirt on it, I'm fine, or I can seriously take care of my body. And so I think taking care of my body at that moment was the smartest thing that I could have done. But it's good to be weekend warriors on some days, and also it's good to be booked every single weekend if possible, but also be smart about like the shows that you're on, and also be smart about like knowing if this is going to be the right booking for you. And I know that there's guys on the rise that they want to get booked everywhere and to have their presence known, but just like as you're getting more and more into it, it's like, okay, make the necessary decisions to book yourself for those weekends, I guess.
Now I gotta ask this. So you met your wife, you were already into wrestling.
Yes.
So does she just kind of accept it all, or it's like, how does that work? Because I know a lot of wrestlers, like you said, like on the weekends, that's what you're doing.
She loves it, and like I will say, like before I met her, obviously she wasn't into it.
Yeah.
But she when I told her about it, she was like, "Oh, okay, this guy just goes out here and wrestles with a bunch of oily dudes, and let's see what happens." No, but I showed her some of my matches, and she's like, "Oh, you have some talent," and she's actually helped me like sell merch, and she's helping me.
Okay.
Yeah, and so she's actually made the designs on some of my gear that I have, which was nice. And so she was like, she sees that I can, she can see that I can do this for, as far as I can go. And so she's been very supportive. And like I said, those weekends, so that the weekend that I got hurt, so I was like, okay, so I'm going to wrestle this weekend. But the weekend prior, she was like, hey, this is my birthday weekend. I want us to hang out. I want you for me. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And so that's always good about being an independent wrestler, is that you can make the time for yourself to where you can make the important decisions for wrestling, but you can also make the important times to be with family, because family's first always in my book. And so it's something that I like to do, is to make sure that I make time for my wife, because we both work as chiropractors, and so we never get to see each other throughout the weekends. And like this weekend, she's not here, so it's kind of hard to spend time with her when we're doing things. And so it's always good to have those weekends to where we can just hang out and enjoy ourselves, because it's already now been almost 6 months since we've been married, and so
I can see that's got to be a bad. I mean, to be honest, I bought a shirt off Brian Malonis at the last show, and I paid his wife through Venmo.
Yeah.
I believe that's what it was. So
that's awesome.
But yeah, do you think that there is? Because I don't know if you're familiar. Like some people that just have walked away that I thought they were just so like. I don't know if you ever heard Mark Sherman.
I have not.
Big fan of his, and just one day he just didn't want to do it anymore. And it was like, man, this guy was so entertaining. I thought he was going, and he just didn't want to do it anymore. Or Jimmy Preston, same thing. Mm-hmm. The one-man thrill ride, like he walked away for a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you think people just get burnt out at times?
It is the mentality of it, because there's a lot of people that when they see that it's not going the way that they want to, they kind of take a little step back, and they're okay, like this may not be for me yet, but they always can make little returns just to see if they can keep the wheels turning, or they just need to take a mental break, because nowadays like your mental health is so important, and and we see it nowadays, for the past few years, especially with wrestlers. And I think it's always good to take care of your body, because if people try to push themselves mentally, physically, emotionally, and it doesn't get them anywhere, they're just going to hit a wall, and it's not going to be the best result. So I think in those senses, it could just be just a break to where it's like, hey, it could be a temporary one, then come back better than ever. Or it could just be, this may not be it for me, because I feel like it's going to spiral me into something that's not going to be good for my health.
No, I could see that.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, both those guys in Chaotix, like Heyday, they were packing the place. They were selling tickets.
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy Preston was selling tickets.
Oh, yeah.
So... now, what's the hardest part about balancing being a chiropractor, which is, your 9 to 5, which is awesome. I think that's really cool, and wrestling?
And to be honest, it actually isn't that much of a hard balance and I'll give you my schedule too. It's usually I wake up at 4:50 because I'm living in Newburyport, which we're getting ready to move to Lowell, so it's a little bit closer for us.
Yeah.
But I work in Westboro, so that's South Massachusetts. You're from New Hampshire, so I'm not sure if you.
I know my parents are from Mass.
Yeah, so
I like to stay where we don't tax on everything. But, yeah.
So it's like there you go. So it's about 40 minutes. It's about 40 minutes. East or 40 minutes west of Boston, so that gives you an idea of like where we're at. So I'm driving an hour to my job, and I have to be there at 6:30, and so I'm working from 6:30 till about 6 p.m. and with little breaks in between, and that's Monday through Thursday. And then my wife, she sometimes has her like Monday through Friday, so it's like if we get the chance to spend time with each other on Friday, we'll do that. But then it's like, okay, so Monday through Thursday, I work, and then Thursday night I travel to Worcester because it's not a 20-minute drive, and I'm able to, if I'm booked on the show or if I'm not, I'll still show up and do whatever. But then you go from like Friday, Saturday, Sunday to Wrestle. It's not that bad. The only thing that's kind of troubling there is just the sleep, but I'm used to it as long as I'm getting like a good 6 or 7 hours and just going straight from working the job to wrestling. It's not bad because, again, working through the week and then being able to wrestle through the weekend. So it's not really that hard to juggle both.
Okay. Yeah. Now, how'd you decide, like we've had Braylon Otzis on the show. He's a chiropractor as well. I think I talked to you a little bit about him. How did you, he really got into it because his dad did it.
Yeah.
How did you get into this? How did you decide you want to do that?
So, believe it or not, I had a different dream before chiropractic and wrestling. So it's more of like I wanted to try to do something with basketball and just see where basketball would take me because I was a big basketball player. Nothing worked out for me. I remember sitting in my bedroom. I was kind of just down on myself, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. And so I went to a community college back home, and I got my basics. At first, I wanted to be an engineer, and then that didn't happen. And I was like, okay, so maybe I can be. I want to help people because I love, seeing people progress and getting better. I'm a people person, so being a physical therapist would be cool. So I ended up going to Morehead State University, and that's where I got my undergrad in exercise science.
Okay.
When I went there, I did their PT program, which this isn't me bashing on physical therapy or anything because I love physical therapy and like what they do. But just being like, some of those settings you're sitting in, you're like, okay, this may not be it for me. And I didn't really have the best experience with it. And so I remember one day my back started hurting because I was doing some heavy squats and heavy jumps and stuff like that. And I ended up going to a local chiropractor, and they helped me, they helped my low back pain, and it was feeling a lot better. And I was talking to one of my cousins, which he's a chiropractor, and he went to Life University in Georgia.
Okay.
And so he was like, yeah, like this is the best school. It's like one of the largest schools, or this is the largest chiropractic school in the world. This will be something that'll be good for you. And so I looked more into it, and then I pulled the trigger, and I said, you know what, I'll go for it. And so I ended up going down to Georgia, October of 2018. Yeah, because that was the same year that I started wrestling. So October 4 years ago is when I started. Yep.
Nice. I've only seen, the only time I've ever gone was to see Brandon, so I have been adjusted before. But I got to ask, because these videos are getting really popular, and I like to watch them. I like Brenda Mondragon and Gregory Johnson and whatever other one. What do you think of the chiropractor YouTube videos? And like, are you like, have you seen what a ringer dinger is? Like, is that safe? Do you believe that's safe? What do you think of all that stuff?
I have different views on different things when it comes to chiropractic because just like wrestling, there's different styles of chiropractic. Okay. So you're not gonna have one style because some people may do full spine, which is the whole adjust on your stomach where your back's up, you adjust them there on their side and then adjust them on their back with their necks. Some they do Gonstead, which is just like a different type of adjusting. Some people use activator where it kind of looks like a little like pin and it looks like a T, and you just shoot through the joint because sometimes people don't like getting adjusted that way. So there's different methods of adjusting, but when it comes to like the YouTube stuff, I do like watching the progressions, but there's some people that they do it just for the viewership and doing it for just the audibles and like the cracking sensations.
Yeah.
And I get that because people are like, oh, like, can you do that cracking thing? Like,
They just love that.
They do it on the videos,
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, like it's the thing is that it's not the point of the cracks and the audibles. It's the fact that we're getting the bone to move so that way your spine isn't misaligned, and that's the whole purpose of it. But now with the ring dinger, you can still do the same motions, but it's not as much force. Because if I was to pull your head in a different direction, that's like if you were kind of like even tilted one way versus the other, you can seriously hurt someone. And so I think that with him, obviously he's been doing it for so many years, so has experience of doing that. Okay. But you still have other ways of taking care of that adjustment without so much force behind that ring digger.
Yeah, because I mean, the first time I was like, oh man, I don't know. I kind of would I want to have that done, but I was like, and I asked Brandon the same thing. I was like, is that even safe?
Right.
But overall, like, do you think is some of the YouTube stuff just stuff that like is just? Do you think it is more for views, or like are they putting people in danger? I don't know.
It varies. I don't think they're putting people in danger, but okay. I mean, it varies because you have a lot of people where it's because no one takes this into consideration. Where you look at chiropractors and we're the safest industry because we have like the lowest of malpractice insurance. Like we are the safest profession when it comes out there. But then when something goes wrong, like if one thing happens, the media breaks out. But no one talks about the medications that it's killing so many people, and they just think that's a normal thing, and it's not. So example, someone from Georgia, she ended up getting adjusted, and I guess something happened to where she ended up being paralyzed. Okay. And that was from it's called arterial dissection, which it's blood vessels that kind of like burst, and it could be from anything, whether it be an adjustment, whether it be like looking down for the longest time, then looking straight up. You can get it from anywhere, any place, any time. But the thing is that when the media hits that, oh, someone got injured, they try to blow it up to where chiropractic's not the safest for you. And I'm telling you that chiropractors are one of the safest. Chiropractic care is the safest profession that you can get into to see how to take care of your body in a natural way. Versus you see people now like, they take medications and they're taking more medications because of the side effects from that medication. So we're not dissing on the medication or like the medical field or anything like that because they always have a time and place. Yeah. But if we can be that first line of defense to where you don't need that, if you don't need that medication, if you don't need that surgery, to help clear your spine so the way the nerves work at 100% to feed the organs well, then we're there to help you out for sure. Awesome. Now, what would you tell like a young person trying to get into the field? Definitely study. Definitely understand the mechanics behind everything, because some people, they take it lightly because they think that chiropractic, because I mean, granted, and everyone makes jokes on TV and stuff like that about professions, and they do like these funny like side like ha-has of people in the medical field or people of chiropractics, and they make fun of chiropractors all the time, but it is a serious thing because we are considered doctors. Yeah. And it is something that we want to make sure that if someone is getting into it, they understand that there's a lot of heavy science behind it. So just to make sure that you study up on it, don't get stressed out. You will have some moments of like breakdowns because it does get a lot, because we do study as much as medical students, but more of like the natural holistic side versus like the pharmacology and the medicine side of things. But it is a good choice. It does get detrimental sometimes, but it's worth it in the end. All right, awesome. You did have some fan questions, so I do want to get into it. And Rob and Dave both had a bunch of questions. Oh, absolutely. I'm ready for them. Rob, and I think Kassan, we call him Crayon Dude. He's a member of the four families of podcasters that we do wrestling stuff together. Gotcha. He wants to know, what does DC stand for? Doctor of Chiropractic. That's what I guessed. Yes. And some people, whenever I tell people I'm a chiropractor, that I'm a doctor, they think that it's medical doctor. It's a different thing. So you have PhD, and that's pharmaceutical doctor. Then you have MD, which is medical doctor. DC is Doctor of Chiropractic. So that's just one of those little slip-ups. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it's just something that when I say I'm Landon, Hale, DC, so it's like Britt Baker, DMD, Doctor of Medical Dentistry. And so DC, Doctor of Chiropractic. All right, awesome. He wants to know he also wants to know what promotions do you aspire to work for? All of them. And this goes back to like what we were talking about. I do want to work for every promotion. I don't have to be the weekend warriors, but I would love to work for every promotion if possible. I'm very thankful for APW, for Invictus, Fight Life, chaotic. I would like to work for Limitless Beyond. I would like to work for them. I've been doing stuff with Wrestling Open, so I'm continuing once I'm getting back to the shows that I mentioned. Yeah, I mean, it would be cool just to get experience from different places in the Northeast, because now that I'm up here, I know that I have a lot of shows where I can easily come back down to the South, which I would like to, but it's also good till I get my feet wet in the Northeast to see how it is up here. But just to be a very general statement, any promotion that's willing to book me, so just to show them what I can do.
Now, you worked with, I can't think of his name, the Indian wrestler. He gets booked on AEW. Georgia. So he started off on Dark. How are people like? Because a lot of local people end up on Dark. Is this Tony Khan like just asking like how are these people ending up on the show?
I think, and I can't really mention names, but there is a specific person or a few people that you can get in touch with, or send emails out and send resumes out to, just as if it was like a regular business, or as if you're getting booked. And just be like, hey, I noticed that you're in the area. I'd like to send out ABC if you're local, and just do some Dark stuff, and then they'll send you an email back saying like, hey, we would like you, and then they use you for that.
Because those are the episodes I watch, is when it's the local people.
Right.
Like around here, I'm like, MSP was on there the other day. I was like, I'm going to watch this match. Or Basic Becca, but I think she's using a different name now. Like, she had a match. Or JT Dunn had a match.
Yep.
And I'm like, it's the only time I watch Dark. It's like, he also wants to know, do you have a permanent chiropractor job right now?
Yeah, so I am a chiropractic associate, which is I'm just working under the main chiropractor, and I'm working out of Westboro.
Okay,
Yeah.
Awesome. And he wants to know, do you recommend adjustments for everyone?
I recommend, and there's a simple, how do I explain? A chiropractic adjustment is for everybody, but sometimes it may not be for everybody, if that makes sense. So it's like you may say like, oh, I'm ready to get adjusted. I may adjust you. Sometimes you'll feel great. Other times you'll be like, oh man, this doesn't feel the best. And then some people may not have the best experience for it. So you take it as if you want. So you can, it's for everybody, but it may not feel the best for everybody, if that makes sense.
Well, I'll tell you, I did the neck thing, and I loved it.
There you go.
He wants to know now, Crayon Dude is from Washington. He's a big Seattle Mariners fan. He's been talking about that a lot. What's the greatest state in the U.S. right now? That's a tough... I'm always going to say New Hampshire, but...
Yeah, and I've only lived in 3 states, but obviously I'm going to have to go with my home state, Kentucky. And the reason I'm saying that is nothing... When I go home, it's like, you go to different places and you come back to where you're from, and it's like, okay, this is the place where I was born. That's people are gonna represent their home state till they die. For me, the only reason I represent it is because it's a slow down pace. In Georgia, where I'm in the city and I'm in school, Massachusetts, obviously it's not so much of city life, but you're in the mountains, you get to get away from your phones, you get away from technology, you get to spend time with your family, and you get to slow things down, and you get to enjoy the roots around you. And so that's why I enjoy it. Because my area of Kentucky, because you have, the more east you go, because I'm from eastern Kentucky, so out west it's more of like flatlands, central. When you get more east, because you get into the Appalachian Mountains, that's where you get to see.
Well, I would love to. I've hiked all the 4,000 footers in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
I was addicted to hiking for a while. I'd love to do that.
It's beautiful, yeah. And because the mountains are so close to you. So because if you go to North Carolina, Virginia, you see the mountains from afar. In Kentucky, we live in between the mountains, and so it's just a different view site, and I think it's something that you would enjoy too, because it's definitely a beautiful place.
Yeah, no, I'd love to hike more states. Even I went to Vermont a little bit.
Yeah.
They only have 3,000-4,000 footers, but man, hiking, that was just one of my, you get addicted to something, and next thing you know, you're there every weekend.
Absolutely.
So Dave Fournier, Dave.
Yeah.
He has some questions here. He wants to know, what's the differences between shows that you worked in the South compared to New England?
I think it's the style of wrestling, and it's more of, because again, with wrestling, we want to be able to give our all in the ring, but we also want to give the fans what they want, because we love our fans and they deserve the best, and so we try to get the fans involved. Up here, it's more of a fast-paced style of wrestling where it feels more of TV style wrestling, versus in the South, you can take your time with it. You can, because it's very old school in the South when it comes, because again, my trainer was Robert Gibson, so it was very old school when it comes
Rock
to
and Roll Express for people watching.
rock and roll, baby. So it's very slow paced when it comes to like, you know, just enjoying it. I mean, both aspects of the South and the North, they enjoy what they do. So it's more of like they make sure that again the crowd's involved, but I think it's more of a faster paced up here like style of wrestling versus in the South. Again, slowed down. You know, you take your time with everything.
I think because I mean, if you look back, even like the WCW style was a little bit different. That's why Hogan didn't really fit in right away. Like, yeah, people wanted him to be there, but then the Southern audience started to be like, no, we want Flair.
Yeah,
we don't want to just see this leg drop.
Right.
Like,
it's so different because some people they love characters, other people they love the wrestling, and you know you do have a mix of both. And like there's some wrestling out there that. Like and like I've noticed some promotions in the North where it's like they're very character based. Others it's just they want to see the wrestling, and it doesn't matter like how fast or how slow the pace is. They love it, and you know in the South it varies on where you go. So like for example in the South, Action Wrestling, I represent them all day. You know, Southeast First.
Yeah.
They always have like a great style of wrestling with, you know, again guys like AC Mack, Jaden Newman. You have all these like top names in the South where they do like the faster style pace like you would see at like Chaotic or where you would see at Limitless. But then you have like the other local shows that not a lot of people know about except for like the local people. But it's just a place just to go and relax and get the fans involved, get the kids involved, and you love to see it. And so it's a big difference, and it's one of those like you just have to see it to understand what's going on. If what I'm saying doesn't make sense.
No, I like all aspects. Like I've just always been a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
So I like all aspects. Do I like the characters better? Yeah. Like, you know, the other day it was funny. Tony Khan, who has to comment on Twitter about goddamn everything. People were complaining there was too many promos. I go, I love wrestling promos. Promos sell the match.
Yep.
Promos sell pay-per-views. Okay.
Yep.
I want to see. You know, look at everything that Punk and MJF did last year. That sold the match.
Storytelling.
Yeah, like I think, you know, when people are like, oh, I just want to see match after match, I'm like, because I know a lot of people used to be critical of Raw and saying, well, they start with a promo every week. I go, yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you turn on AEW, and I remember the way they were starting, it's like, I got to see the Young Bucks do, you know, Circus Olay for, you know, for a little bit.
45 minutes.
Sorry, hot take, I know. He also wants to know, who is one person you would like to wrestle?
There's so many. That's a very
I'd have to imagine,
general question because it's like I can say anybody that I want to. So I mean, if he's meaning on the independents right now, I have a long list because it's really hard to mention. But if it's anybody from Indies to AEW to WWE, it would have to be my hero Rey Mysterio.
Oh wow,
1,000%.
I bought his mask at WrestleMania. It was like $55. I was like, I don't care. I need a Rey Mysterio mask, and I was like, I'm buying this.
He autographed my mask. So I went to my first ever WWE live event, and I thought this was going to be on TV, and I didn't realize the difference between live shows and house shows. And so this was a house show, and I was I think it was like going into 7th grade. And I remember it was at the local because we built a center close to our house in our hometown of Pikeville. It's called the East Kentucky Expo Center. It's now the Appalachian Wireless Arena because their cell phone carrier there. I'll tell you about it after. Yeah, but yeah, so they had the center there, and they opened in like 2005 or something like that. And so that was like the 4th or 5th event that they've held there, and it was the wrestling show. And I see Rey Mysterio. It was like Rey Mysterio and Batista versus it was like I think it was like against JBL and Finley. Don't ask me how I remember this.
Yeah.
But I loved it. And Rey Mysterio came around. He hugged everybody. I remember him like taking a picture with me on the Kodiak camera, that you get dispensed at Walmart.
Yep.
And I remember taking a picture with him. And I had my light blue Rey Mysterio mask that I bought on WWE, and he signed it and stuff like that. And so I was just like, this is awesome.
Yeah, he's always done the fan favorite. The only time he was ever a heel was when he was in the Filthy Animals.
Yeah, in the WCW before
when
WCW
he lost the
went.
mask.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was a lot of money to be made in bringing him to WWE because, we were all going to buy those masks.
Oh, 1,000%, yes.
He wants to know, are you going to see Halloween Ends? For the record, I tried to hold out. I did watch on Peacock last night. Are you a Halloween fan? You didn't see it?
So I'm not, and don't hate me, I'm not a big fan of like how like I'll watch Halloween movies, but it's not like, oh, it's Halloween, let's darken the place, let's put on candles. Like I'm not that deep into Halloween movies, but like I will watch it every now and then. But I'd like to see Halloween Ends because I heard it's a really good movie. For some.
We're not gonna do spoilers, but I just want to say it pissed me off just as much as The Last Jedi.
Oh boy.
What was it like training under Robert Gibson?
He's amazing. People when they look at characters from the TV screen, they think that's who they're gonna get, right? And then you meet them backstage or you meet them out somewhere, and they're a totally different person. Robert is very.
And these guys have done it at an old age.
Robert
they still get called in to do stuff.
Robert's the quiet guy. You have Ricky that talks on the mic, and then Robert's like, "Hey kid, let's go to the back, let's get ready." Like, so he's very quiet, but he's still like he's willing to talk to everybody. He's willing to go out of his way to help the next person get better. And you have Ricky Morton's school in Tennessee, and they talk about all these different schools that they had where, they're like top 10 like schools in the world to train, and Robert doesn't get mentioned because he's not like publicizing his school for everyone to come train. It's kind of like, and I'm using this and this is kind of like a weird setup that I'm using, like Cobra Kai, for example, because you know how like Miyagi-Do is like the very small training people versus Cobra Kai. I'm not saying that Robert's Miyagi-Do and then like everyone else is Cobra Kai, but I'm saying like he's got like a very small group of people that he trains so well that not a lot of people are like, oh, like because people are like, yeah, I'm trained by, like, for example, some people may say they're trained by Damian Adams. People are trained by New England Pro Wrestling Academy. Like you have all these like people up here and they understand, but then when they're like, oh, you're trained by Robert Gibson, they're like, oh wow, I've never heard of that. But Robert Gibson.
I may not know who. If you know wrestling, you know who the Not that I didn't really watch them growing up, but I remember they came to WWF.
Yeah.
They had the feud with the Heavenly Bodies. I knew who the Rock and Roll Express was.
Yeah, like who the Rock and Roll Express is, but like not, but saying like you were trained by them. They're like, oh, like
they did, yeah.
Yeah, because you never hear so many people say that they came out of Robert Gibson's school. And so he trained a few of us. He had his own promotion called All Pro Championship Wrestling, which actually won my first ever heavyweight title there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I remember seeing that.
Yeah, and he's my wrestling dad, and I love him to death. And he's like, he literally just texted me as I was coming up to this interview, and he texted me the Rock and Roll Express versus Midnight Express in the scaffold match.
Oh, nice.
And I remember he would show us that on his like at training and stuff like that too. And he's taught us a lot, and he's always there for us. And I remember the last day when we got finished, because the building that we were renting out of, it ended up being bought out by somebody, so we only had like so many months to train out of there. And this was May of last year. And so we had our last training session. He gave me his Hall of Fame ring to like wear during the picture, the group picture.
Yeah.
And I got emotional because like I've trained under him since I moved down to Georgia. So like being under his wing for almost 3 years, and he's like, "Hey kid, don't forget about me whenever you become famous." And so like he gave me a big hug, and yeah, I love that man. So shout out Robert Gibson.
No, that's awesome. And yeah, anybody, if you know the history of wrestling, then you know who the Rock and Roll Express is.
Oh, 1,000%.
They're a big deal.
Yeah.
He just also wants to know one last thing. What advice would you give someone looking to start training to be a pro wrestler?
Take your time. Don't get ahead, and don't get so stressed out, because it is a taxing profession. Like it's a business. It's a taxing business where you're putting your body on the line to have the best experience for someone else that wants to come up and watch wrestling. So like people don't take into perspective like the tolls that they're putting on the body. And for the people that don't know out there, bumping in a wrestling ring hurts like hell. So it takes
the one time I did it, I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
It takes a toll on your body. I mean, it's like the difference between taking a bump on it's like a healthy medium between taking a bump on a bed and then taking a bump on this table.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things to take into perspective, but then when it goes to like, okay, once you get to the swing of things, and then you want to get better and better, and you want to like push yourself to do other things, just take your time with it and don't get so stressed out. And you'll just take your time with it, and everything else will flow.
I mean, we've had people on the show that went to wrestling training and they didn't get booked.
Yeah.
But they said they had a good time. I would say the most interesting thing and this is my whole takeaway from my one day of fantasy wrestling training, I never thought about how you grab the rope.
Mm-hmm.
That literally never thought about that at all. And they were like, no, you gotta sink into the rope. I remember like being like, I never thought of this. And then I watch it now. Every time I watch a wrestling match, I go, they're doing it.
It's the small things.
You know?
Not a lot of people understand that, because when they think wrestling, they think the action, they think the moves, but then they don't think the small things when they actually when they look from the outside in, they think it's cool. But from the inside out, they're like, oh man, okay, now
I was like, this is the little things that go on. And then at one point we're doing tie-ups, right? And I was a wrestler growing up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I just go in and they're like, no, you gotta both look good. I go, because I don't know. Again, I was in my 30s at this point.
Yeah.
So I was like tying up with this like 18-year-old kid, and I'm just grabbing them. And they're like, no, you gotta look at the camera. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot that kind of goes into, you know, which I knew, but I mean, like, until you actually, someone starts breaking it down to you, then it just starts to make more sense to you.
Yeah, and it's all about taking care of your opponents in the ring too. So it's like you want to make sure that you have the best qualities, the best aspects when getting into the ring. It's like, okay, again, and this goes back to his question, don't, like, your mind is going to go 1,000 miles an hour, because this is kind of like going for an interview, and you don't know what to say, so you're just kind of like just word vomit. But rather than word vomit, you're just doing action stuff, and they're like, hey, slow down, just listen. That's all it is.
Yeah, no, very fascinating stuff. Now, I got top fives. We want to get top fives in blank versus blank in while we still have enough time. Who are the top 5 indie wrestlers that you think right now? It could be in the area, whatever that you think.
Okay, indies. Okay, I'm going to say, and in no particular order, Aaron Rourke, Ricky Smokes, Jaden Newman, Alec Price. There's one more. Shoot. I was thinking about this because it's tough. A guy by the name of Isaiah Broner.
Okay.
Yeah, he's out of the Midwest, so he's out of Ohio, and I think he's a big body, so I think he's gonna be good. But yeah, those are my top 5.
I gotta say, Alec Price, it's kind of crazy how far he's come, because I remember going to a Limitless show where he was just in the audience, and I think he's the current Limitless. Oh, he lost
to Ace Romero.
Ace Romero.
Yep.
Yeah.
But he's still the Bone Storm champion from Southern Underground Pro in Nashville, and I think he's some champion. He's like the mid-card champion in Empire State Wrestling in Buffalo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they were giving Ace Romero his like roses there, because he's the main guy.
Yep.
And I don't think he's ever won the title.
I don't think so.
And so they did a career. I guess it was career.
Title versus career. Yep.
Yeah. Randy's somebody I gotta talk to at some point, but he's far away. You have top 5 movies?
I do. Can I do series? I was going to ask you that. Can I do series?
Yeah, we've had people say, yeah, we like the whole Back to the Future trilogy.
Okay, all right. So Harry Potter, rest in peace to Robbie Coltrane.
Yeah, today.
Yeah. Star Wars, Matrix, Dumb and Dumber. I love that movie. And Whiplash.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good movie. I don't know if you've seen it.
Whiplash, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's a drumming movie. It's more of like a drama scene. I can't think of the guy's name. Shoot, now it's gonna bother me. It's a good. It'll come to me soon. But no, it's a really good movie where Miles Teller. That's who it is. So Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons, the bald dude that plays the Eminem Peanut.
Yeah.
State Farm commercial.
He's not only that. He's Schillinger on Oz. I don't know if you've ever seen Oz. It's one of my all-time favorite shows, a prison show. He plays this white supremacist Nazi, and it's just crazy to see him do these commercials now, because Schillinger was like the most evil character in the whole show.
That's what I was thinking with him on there, because he's like this dictator of I wouldn't say dictator, but he's just kind of like this hard ass on you, that he's just like, he's like pretty much tough on. He's like, oh yeah, like you're doing good, and then all of a sudden he just like rips you a new one. Like you will love this movie if you want. If you
check
like
it out.
like
Yeah, he's great. He was great in Juno too. He was like the stepfather.
Oh yeah.
Whatever, you know. Do you have a top 5 favorite TV shows?
Can I include Netflix, because I really don't watch shows that much?
No, Netflix is TV. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I know people are like, oh no, that's a Netflix series, not TV. All right, cool. I would say Cobra Kai. I would say Blue Mountain State.
Do you know the guy that made that show is from Nashville?
Really?
Yeah.
Who is it?
I forget his name, but I just know that
was he the guy that played Sammy?
He was the creator of the show. I forget his name.
I know that the guy that played Sammy was like one of the guys
Yeah,
that
yeah.
helped out. So that'd be cool to meet him because that'd be.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't watch the show that much, but like, it was just one of the, like, Nashville's my hometown, so it's like, just like, oh, Triple H is from here.
Of course, you gotta
Yeah.
you gotta say that. But yeah, those two, Dexter.
Oh, I did love Dexter. I fell off. but
Dexter's
yeah.
so good. Shoot, Family Guy, and I don't usually. I guess like WWE. I'll just say that, just because I'll just
Throw them all in one bucket.
throw them all in one bucket. Yeah, because I really don't watch TV as much, and then sometimes when I have the free time when I'm not wrestling or whatever, I'll watch some shows. But it's fair. Oh, you know what? I'll take that back. I won't say. Let's see here. The last one I'll say is Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Ah, yes.
That's a good
That doesn't
show.
come up enough. I don't even think they put that. The Rolling Stone did that top 100 TV shows, and I don't think it was on there. Which is, if it's not, that's a travesty.
I love Fresh. I can quote every
I learned a lot from
episode from Fresh Prince and learning that. Yes, it's a great show. I love it. But yeah, Fresh Prince. I forgot about that. But yeah, those are my 5.
All right, awesome. Well, I want to get into blank versus blank. I'm going to give you 2 things. You got to pick one. You got to tell me why. First off, we got some music ones here. Prince or Michael Jackson?
Michael Jackson, just because I've listened to his music more. Because my mom was a big fan of oldies, and so like I would listen to like Michael Jackson and Prince, but she was more of like the Michael Jackson scene and Thriller, and so Michael Jackson.
See, I agree. I got more into Prince when he passed away.
Oh, really?
I just never. Well, one thing about Prince was that when he was alive, you couldn't listen to a Prince song on YouTube.
Why was that?
I don't know. He had copyrights and he wouldn't allow it. I don't know what happened. But then I got into it more. I bought Purple Rain and was like, oh, I was missing out on this. But I'm with you. Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson are just 2 of my favorites of all time. I want to talk about this. They just put out a new song, Blink-182.
Okay.
It's actually really good. Tom is back in the band. But another band that they both were in the punk rock scene, but they went to the mainstream, Green Day.
Okay.
You had to pick Blink-182 or Green Day. Who would you go with?
Probably Green Day. And I'm only saying that because I like Blink-182 as well. But I would say I would listen more of Green Day when it was like Holiday and Broken Dreams and that sort of album era. So I was listening to more of that growing up. So I'd say Green Day.
It's crazy because both those bands were pretty raw. Like if you listen to them back in the day, like I had Dookie in 3rd grade,
Right.
and then Dude Ranch became my thing in like when I was in like 7th grade.
Gotcha.
But I've always compared the two because I'm like they both were like punk rock bands that said, yeah, we want to get paid.
Yeah.
You know, I've talked about this with Nick off set where the punk rock mentality was always like, don't sell out. I go, if you're good at something, you should get paid for it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know.
1,000%.
So, would you rather watch a horror movie or comedy?
Comedy. Just because I'm a funny person outside. I'm not saying a funny person, but I prefer jokes versus like horror stuff. I don't know, like because people are like, oh yeah, like, did you watch this horror movie? I'm like, see, again, like I'm not dissing on horror films because they're good. I'm just more of comedy and just light-hearted spirit. Like I'm a kid at heart, so I like comedy.
See, I like both. I think as I've gotten older, more horror, but I'm also not a gore fan.
Yeah.
The first Halloween had no blood.
I like Saw.
Okay, yeah, I do enjoy Saw.
I'm a fan of the Saw, just the creative. Of,
It's freaky.
Yeah, it's like wow, like you put their like glue on their back and now they have like this many minutes to do this, or else his girlfriend gets ran over and then his buddy gets backed into it and then just shoots through the windshield. I'm like, that's creative. I'm like, that's pretty, like not cool.
Yeah, no, it's not a good thing, but it's
creative. You got creative juices. Like whoever's doing this, they got a lot of creative juices.
I gotta ask this: 2 big parts of the Attitude Era. Maybe a lot of people say in the Mount Rushmore, Stone Cold Steve Austin or The Rock.
Stone Cold Steve Austin. 1,000%. Just give me a hell yeah. That's just drinks beer and just he's the hard work. And like I do like The Rock too because he's got a lot of charisma. And, he saved his character from when he was Rocky Maivia up until The Rock, and obviously you see where he's at today. But I would definitely pick The Rock or pick Stone Cold in any day.
The Rock, they're both 2 guys though. The Rock always had it, and he did it faster. That Rocky Maivia character was not great,
Right.
but his talent just rose above it and said, "Give me something else." Same thing with Stone Cold. I mean, but I love Stunning Steve Austin. I was a fan of his. I was a fan of the Hollywood Blondes.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, I was a Brian Pillman fan when he was Flying Brian. Because I was a WCW guy. I liked all wrestling back then. I loved Flying Brian, and I put him with Austin. That made me like Austin.
Yeah.
and to see what he turned into was amazing.
Yeah, and the fact that he got to wrestle Kevin Owens and seeing him cut that promo and him coming back, chills.
We were jumping up and down. We couldn't believe, like, when he bumped, when he actually got flipped. I was like, oh my God, is he gonna be all right?
He didn't. I didn't watch the match, but he didn't get like he bumped on the floor, but he didn't bump in the ring, did he?
I can't remember. I'd have to rewatch it, but yeah, he took a lot. Like
he took a lot, but
yeah.
but like just for like because like I don't have Peacock, so like sometimes I'll go on YouTube and sometimes they'll have like very fast, quick streams of like what they did, and I just remember seeing Kevin Owens suplexing him on the outside, and I was like, oh wow, but like you never see him take a bump in the ring. He may have, and it may have not catched it, but I definitely
I have to go back and watch. But it had us. We were enjoying it thoroughly.
Yes.
Seth Rollins or Cody Rhodes?
Put me on the spot there, brother. Yes, I would probably say Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, I'm more of a Cody, and I like both. But I met Cody Rhodes when he came around all here. He couldn't have been better as a professional and to the fans, where he was like, "Y'all want to take pictures with me? I'm in. Let's go."
Right. Yeah, he's a nice guy. I haven't met him, but I was on the same. Like, I don't know how often you watched AEW when he was on there, but Lance Archer when he was doing his Murder Hawk Mansion thing. So I guess when they did this like Murder Hawk Mansion where he was like on the outside, and this was like before the pandemic, and I was like one of the extras on the outside.
Oh, nice.
And I got booted in the face by him. I'm like, I'll get that 7-foot monster. But no, Cody Rhodes was in the distance, but I didn't get the chance to like go up and say hi because I didn't want to be the guy's like, oh my God, it's Cody Rhodes. But no, I mean, I've heard from everything I've heard that he's a really nice guy.
No, he was a really cool guy. I think I graduated high school the same year he did. AEW or WWE?
Oh, you got to do this to me again.
You don't have to say if you're trying to get booked for either one.
Right. Right now, if you were to ask me a couple of months ago, I'd say AEW. Right now, with the way that the product's going, and they're actually being more.
Tony Khan just.
I wouldn't say more serious, but I mean, because Vince McMahon, you had like these different gimmicks that they're trying to run by, and then now they're having. I would say WWE.
Okay.
A very 51-49 going.
It's hard for me to like AEW right now because my issue with them is the backstage stuff is just too much.
Yeah.
Like if everybody, it's a work. I go, well, if it was a work, it's not working.
Right.
It just makes them look like fools.
Right.
But anyways, Landon, I really appreciate you coming on the show. This has been a blast.
Thank you for having me. I had an awesome time. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it was a good time. Well, everybody out there, keep your heads up. Have a wonderful week. Until next time, let freedom ring.